Stephen King's story did not begin with fame. It began with failure. Before the best-selling books, before the movies, before the world knew his name, Stephen King was a struggling writer living a very hard life. He wasn't rich. He wasn't respected. He wasn't confident. He worked small jobs just to survive, teaching during the day, writing late at night, barely sleeping, barely earning enough money to live. But he had one dream: to be a writer. Not famous, not rich, just published. That dream felt very far away. Stephen King sent his stories to publishers again and again. Each time, the answer came back the same: rejection, cold letters, short sentences, no encouragement. Some letters didn't even explain why they said no. They just said no. Rejection piled up so many times that Stephen King stopped counting. The letters hurt, but what hurt more was doubt. He began asking himself difficult questions. Am I wasting my time? Am I good enough? Will anyone ever care about my writing? His life outside writing wasn't easy either. Money was always short. Stress was constant. He felt pressure from every direction. At one point, he felt completely defeated. Then came the moment that almost ended everything. Stephen King wrote a novel. He didn't. In it, he thought it wasn't good. He thought nobody wanted. He thought it proved the critics were right. So he did something shocking. He threw the manuscript away. The story was called Carrie. To Stephen King, it felt like another failure, another reason to quit. But quitting doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes, it gets interrupted. Stephen King believed the story was finished. Not finished as a book. Finished as a failure. He threw the manuscript away and walked away from it, convinced that this is proof he wasn't good enough to be a real writer. But someone else saw something different. His wife found the pages. She read them quietly. She didn't see failure. She saw potential. She told him something simple but powerful. You can't quit now. She believed in the story even when he didn't. She believed in him when rejection had broken his confidence. That moment mattered more than any publisher. Because when someone believes in you at your lowest point, it can change everything. Stephen King listened. He picked the manuscript back up. He rewrote it. He improved it. He finished it, not because he was confident, but because he was stubborn. Then the rejections continued. Publishers still said no. Letters still came back. Hope still felt fragile. Life outside writing stayed difficult. Money problems didn't disappear. Stress followed him everywhere. Some days, it felt easier to quit than to keep going. But now, something was different. He wasn't writing only for himself anymore. Someone else believed in the story. That belief kept him going. He sent the manuscript out again and again. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A publisher said yes. Not excitement. Not celebration. Just yes. That yes was small, but it was real. The book was published quietly. There were no big expectations. No promises of success. Just a chance. Stephen King didn't feel victorious. He felt relieved, but the real surprise came later. Because readers connected with the story. They felt its fear. They felt its honesty. They felt something real. Word began to spread. Slowly. And Stephen King realized something important. Rejection hadn't stopped him. It had shaped him. When the book was released, Stephen King didn't expect much. He was still teaching. Still struggling financially. Still unsure if this small success would last. But readers reacted strongly. They talked about the story. They shared it. They felt connected to it. Sales began to rise. Then something unexpected happened. The paperback rights were sold for a large amount of money. For the first time in his life, Stephen King felt financial relief. The pressure lifted, but only slightly. Because with success came fear. What if this is my only good book? What if I fail next? What if the world loses interest? Doubt didn't disappear with money. It just changed its shape. Stephen King kept writing, not because he felt safe. Because he felt driven. He wrote constantly. Early mornings, late nights, every free moment. Writing became his way of staying grounded. Stories kept coming. one after another. Each book reached more readers. Each one proved that his success was not an accident. Slowly, he became known as a writer who didn't stop. But critics were still watching. They said his stories were too dark. They said his writing was too popular to be serious. They said success would fade. Stephen King didn't argue. He kept producing, because he understood something important. The best answer to doubt is consistency. And consistency became his strength. The man who once threw his manuscript away was now creating worlds that millions wanted to enter. But the hardest battle was not outside. It was inside. Because success didn't erase his inner struggles. And his story was not finished yet. Success changed Stephen King's life. But it didn't fix everything. As fame grew, pressure grew with it. Expectations became heavy. Deadlines never stopped. People wanted more stories, more books, more success. Stephen King kept writing. But slowly, something dangerous happened. He lost balance. Stress followed him everywhere. Fear of failure stayed close. And instead of facing it, he tried to escape it. Alcohol, drugs, they became part of his daily life. At first, he thought he was in control. He wasn't. Writing continued, but clarity disappeared. Some days blurred together. Some moments were forgotten completely. Later, Stephen King would admit that he doesn't even remember writing some of his own books. Success hid the problem for a while. But addiction never stays hidden forever. It affected his health. It affected his family. It affected his mind. The same man who survived rejection was now fighting himself. Eventually, the people closest to him stepped in. They didn't argue. They didn't attack him. They showed him the truth. They showed him how bad things had become. That moment hurt more than any rejection letter ever did. Because this time, the danger wasn't publishers. It was himself. Stephen King made a decision. He chose to fight back. He went through recovery. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. It was painful. But he faced it honestly, just like he faced rejection years earlier. Writing saved him again. Not fame, not money. Writing. It gave him structure. It gave him focus. It gave him a reason to stay disciplined. Once again, he rebuilt himself. Slowly. Patiently. Honestly. The man who almost quit writing had now survived rejection, success, and self-destruction. And now, he was stronger than ever. But the final lesson of his story was still waiting. Because revenge isn't complete until the meaning becomes clear. In the end, Stephen King's story was never about horror. Horror was just the language he used. The real story was about rejection, doubt, and choosing not to quit. He was rejected again and again. His letters came back with cold words. His confidence slowly disappeared. He reached a point where he threw his own story in the trash. That's how close the world came to never knowing his name. But Stephen King didn't win because he was confident. He won because he kept going without confidence. He wrote while broke. He wrote while doubting himself. He wrote while believing he might fail again. Rejection didn't make him stop. It trained him. It taught him discipline. It taught him patience. It taught him humility. Even after success, his life was not perfect. Fame brought pressure. Pressure led to addiction. Addiction nearly destroyed him. And once again, Stephen King had to choose, quit, or fight. He fought, not with anger, not with excuses, with honesty. Writing saved him, again. The same habit that helped him survive rejection helped him survive success. The same discipline that built his career rebuilt his life. Today, his stories are everywhere. Books, movies, culture. The man who was once rejected and doubted became one of the most read writers in history. That is real revenge. Not proving critics wrong with noise. Not embarrassing those who doubted you. But creating something so powerful that rejection becomes meaningless. Stephen King's story teaches us one truth. Being rejected doesn't mean you are bad. Sometimes, it means you are early. If you can keep going when nobody believes, if you can survive doubt without applause, if you can stand back up after throwing your dream away, Then one day, the world will read your name. This was Infinity Revenge story. Every story here proves one thing: rejection is not the end. It's the beginning. Remember, the strongest revenge is success.